Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. How you doing, Tish?
Good morning. How are you, Mario?
I am getting there.
I've been drinking on my coffee, getting ready, because it's about to
Okay.
be deep this morning.
See,
Whew,
I did a little Dr. Pepper for this morning, even though I'm not supposed to be drinking sodas early in the morning, but I
I
need
know,
something
right?
to boost me up. I did get back into drinking coffee again.
Yeah, this is like a every few days I might drink a cup of coffee now. I've been trying to wean myself off because I've been so heavily caffeinated lately, making myself sick. But anyway, so the thing about today, we are literally less than a week away from local voting, right?
Right?
Voting in new mayor, city council members, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So, Mara and I've been having these conversations for like several weeks now, discussing our responsibility personally and, as community members, as family members and stuff like that, what our responsibility should be when it comes to this voting that's coming up. And one of the things that we really wanted to talk about today was how can we get our community to care and to be supportive and interested in what's going on in their community. So one of the things that I mentioned to him a couple of days ago was that we should really talk to our group, our age group, and maybe even those that are a little younger than us, and say, hey, what makes you want to vote or not want to vote? Right? Is that about
Right.
where we are with this?
Right. And I think that's one of the things that I've been curious because I know ever since I got out the military, I vote anytime it comes up, I vote.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was in the military, I didn't really vote because technically the way I looked at it is that okay, I'm in the military, so I don't have time for politics, and that was my
Gotcha.
attitude back then. Now that I'm out of the military, my focus is to serve my community, and so to serve my community is you have to do all the above. You have to be connected, even though sometimes you don't want to be connected to certain things. In order to be effective, you got to be committed at every level. So, for example, voting is a part of supporting your community. Um,
True.
is because if you don't have the right community leaders in the right positions, it makes it harder for you to do the right things for your community. And that's something to where a lot of people, and I get it. A lot of people don't see city council members as a effective position to be a leader, but in reality, they do have a major impact on what goes on in our community as far as different resources and different things, like in reference to what businesses go where and how things are distribution as far as services and construction, like sidewalks. Um, Believe it or not, that's who controls who puts up sidewalks and who doesn't get sidewalks. School, like charter schools. I know that's one of the last things I heard was and how they were talking about charter schools on Rose Hill Road. So these are different things that our community leaders have to make decisions on. So that's crucial. Now, if all you want is strip clubs on your street, then guess who controls that? Their district manager that has that say so. So those are just usually just different things that they have a major impact on what goes where.
True. I think the problem is that a lot of people are not aware. Um, well, let's say it that way. I want to say it another way, but um, it's like if I'm working a 9 to 5 and I'm barely making it through, um, what is my local government going to do for me? And why should I even do anything for them?
And in reality, I've talked people that I've talked to. You have, like I said, well, I know we were talking about this earlier. You have your three different classes of
Hmm.
citizens in Fayetteville. You have your too busy trying to make it day to day to be focused or dealing with other stuff. Then you got the ones that are comfortable, and then you got the ones that are just greedy for more power and money. And that's your three different levels of different. It's like it's either you're trying to survive, you're comfortable, and then you're just greedy and rich.
True.
And so those are your three different classes in Fayetteville. So then the ones that are, which are the majority, are just trying to make it day to day. They're not looking at local government. They're not thinking about local government because all they're thinking about is, okay, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I
True.
going to make my family taken care of? And the thing is, things around them have an impact on on their actual living style. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, and I say this, I keep saying it. I believe Fort Liberty has a major impact on the housing in the Fayetteville area because if you ever pay
The
attention to
rates? You mean the rates of housing
the
or
rate of housing, right? For example, you take an apartment. Most of the apartments are based off of the BAH that soldiers are getting on for Liberty.
which is completely crazy because the average person doesn't get BAH.
Right. So here it is. If BAH and I forgot to look. I gotta pull it up. But if I'm getting paid, if a soldier's getting paid, and let's go look up the BHH rate for Fayetteville for Fort. I said Fort Bragg, but yeah, it's supposed to be Fort Liberty. You're looking at your bottom line for E1 is with dependents is $1,530.
What regular person can do that? Like working a 9 to 5 in Fayetteville? Who can
Right,
afford
but that's what's
that?
going on. So this is the trauma that I call it trauma because back in the days, back when I was a young soldier living here in Fayetteville back in 2019, well, I would say 98, 99, 2000 time frame, it was like everything was like, okay, your BAs covered everything you need, and in some cases even paid your utilities. Depends on where you're staying at. So a lot of those buildings back then that people were living in are no longer either condemned, torn down, or are completely just completely remodeled and
Yeah.
cost all kinds of extra money. So now think about it. If the going rate BAH rate is 1530, who else can pay 1530?
Unless you're working at what is it, Goodyear or one of the few factories that are still left in Fayetteville, or working outside of Fayetteville, like at Smithfield or a couple of other companies that are right outside of Fayetteville, or even that new what I don't even think that new warehouse, rooms to go warehouse or distribution center, or the one that's for Walmart could pay that amount.
Right. So
Even as a
think about it.
manager,
So now you go back and you look at most of your bottom line players. Like, okay, most of your places now, I think they're going. I think last time I checked for a 2 bedroom apartment, I think it was $1,200.
what
My mortgage is 1248.
a 2 bed
A 2 bed, I think that was the going rate. What?
umpteen
Yeah.
thousand years ago when I did rent a house in Fayetteville, I, I chose Loch Lomond because it was a really nice area at the time. This tells you how old I am. I paid $550 for a house, and it was 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, with a fenced-in yard and a nice, cute little porch.
Yeah, it's for 2 bedroom. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. It's $1,050
For a 2 bedroom apartment.
for a 2 bedroom apartment. A 1 bedroom apartment is $850 as of October 2023. The average for a 1 bedroom apartment in Fayetteville is $850.
Now I drink water, so I don't drink alcohol because some things make me want to drink. So I just drink water because
Yeah,
this is a lot. Single mother, 2, 3 kids. What?
yeah, but then you go
And
here.
then child care and everything else that comes into play. What? Who can afford to live?
Now keep in mind that quote I gave you is the E1. E1 is the lowest ranking person in the United States Army or services. Period. Army, Air
True.
Force doesn't matter. So it's 1530 for just now. But without a dependent, it's 1230. So even if I wanted to go, so think about it. If I'm getting paid $1,230, and a one bedroom is 850. How much money? How much extra money do I have?
Just have four.
Like for almost close to $400. So then that's what that covers my utilities.
Your light bill,
So
water bill, because in Fayetteville it's all in one. Your cable bill, probably cell phone.
you can pretty much a
Right.
soldier, and I think that's what it is with for soldier. The living expenses is technically covered with their BAH. Now you go out
That's
here,
not even including their regular pay.
right? It's not including their regular
Yeah.
pay, so it's not including the regular pay or the separates they get for food.
Now here's the thing: the BAH. It's just like I know military gets paid the first 15th or whatever, whatever. So their BAH is pretty much spread between their two paychecks, correct?
Correct.
All right. So first of the month, I get half my BAH plus I get my regular pay. So I can shut down all my bills the first of the month. So when the 15th come, and plus I get the rest and stuff. So I can buy groceries. I mean that's easy for the soldier, but what about the common person that lives in Fayetteville who cannot afford that? So now you're putting people into homeless situations, and that's okay.
And that's what's going on in Fayetteville. Is if you go back and if you remember, most of the places that were off of Bragg Boulevard and the Merck,
Hmm.
most of those places were going anywhere between $300 to $500. Even the trailer parks,
Hmm.
most of the trailer parks were going anywhere between. Well, most of the trailer parks were going 550 to 700. Depends on what trailer park you were staying in. If it was a double
Yeah,
wide or single wide. So if most of these places are now being condemned
and shut down, and
and shut down
yeah,
and destroyed and rebuilt, then these people who have been living in these places for years
can't afford the new
can't
place.
afford it. And they got nowhere else to go. So then now you're contributing to the problem. So when you vote for a council member is supposed to come in and supposed to represent your community, and they're supposed to be looking out for these individuals. And majority of them are elders that have been. They're not military associated.
Hmm.
And I stress that to people because I want to make that very clear. If you have no connection to the military living in Fayetteville, you're struggling hard. And that's sad because there's not too many. How many jobs just based off of your benefits? And I'm talking about retirees and active duty. Just off of benefits alone, it pretty much covers their living expenses.
I can't answer that because I was pulling it up to make sure I had the right number. But currently it says that there are about um as of June of this year, there's like 50,000 troops at Fort Liberty.
Right.
So an
It's the
entire
largest.
city.
It's the
Now,
largest
mind you,
military.
aren't there some base related housing as well?
Yes, there is.
Okay. All right. So let's say out of the 50,000 soldiers, about half of them have to find housing locally, right?
Correct.
All right. So, but the entire city is gauging pricing based on something that equals a little bit more than maybe 11-12% of our city, because our city
Well,
population is almost 210,000 people.
like you said, you go back and just like you just based off that one number, the average rent for a two
Seems
bedroom, like I
so
said,
wrong though, doesn't it?
huh?
Doesn't that seem really wrong? Like it, I mean, is it me or am I just seeing something wrong with that? Like you're basing this higher rent on a smaller minority group of people. You know what I'm saying? On a
Hmm.
smaller group of people, but you've got this larger group of people that are gonna be there. Don't no disrespect because I'm from a military family. My husband used to be military, whatever, whatever. I know that, and you're part military, so there's some that are gonna retire. There's some that's not. But 25,000 people that may be floating in and out is not a fair assessment of the ability of 200,000 people. It's not a
Right.
fair assessment. So that doesn't feel wrong to anybody. I mean,
Well, I think that's where if you go back in history, when Desert Shield, Desert Storm happened, I think this is one of the things I was looking at. When Desert Shield, Desert Storm happened, Fayetteville became a ghost town,
it did.
and with that had a major impact on the local businesses because all that money that they were depending on disappeared.
it wasn't so well. It did disappear, but because I lived in the area at the time, well, didn't actually live in there, but I did see a lot of stuff in the area at the time. What it really was that like the local um hot spots for food, or the laundromat places, or the place that would press, your uniforms, you can get your stuff fixed, that
Right.
the people coming in didn't know about those spots. So a lot of those spots did lose and end up closing during that time because they didn't have um there wasn't like a general list on the basis that, hey, these are the key places to go to. These are the most dependable place to go to. More so they have places like, don't go here, don't go there, that kind
Right.
of stuff.
Right.
And if they had something that was local business based, a lot of those businesses probably would have been fine, or at least
Well, see,
stayed
the thing
free.
is, but you like, so for example, you look back then, Yakin Road, Bragg Boulevard were the primary roads that supported
Yes.
everything that was military related. So when those businesses that they relied so heavily on Fort Bragg back then,
Mm-hmm.
when they up and deployed out for Desert Shield, Desert Storm, that kind of major impact on that, and so they learned from that lesson to where we can't base everything on the military base.
But they are still basing stuff on the military base because they're basing it
Well,
on their pay.
if you look at it, when Forcecom came to Fort Liberty, Forcecom and Reserve Command, both of those major commands that came out of Atlanta, there was a huge wave of apartments that were built, just to receive all the soldiers and civilians that were coming in, because a lot of them didn't want to give up their housing here, so they were just getting apartments. So there was a big wave of, so most of these places that were condemned and torn down, well, apartments were built in their place. And when these
Mm-hmm.
apartments were built, then guess what? Now you're looking at, what was it for one bedroom, $850. Okay, but most people that were living in a 3-bedroom trailer were paying 550. So that's a whole $300 they have to come up with. So that's something. So the people that control some of this are our local government. And if we don't elect the right people in there,
So how do
then,
people not know this?
well, and I think that's because a lot of people don't pay attention to it. A lot of people are too busy. They got their heads, so they're so focused on just making it day to day or making sure their family's taken care of. They don't have time to deal with politics. Now, people who care or understand it, and that's what I said. There's only two type of people that know about voting for your local government: people who are greedy and want to control, have more power and more money, and then people who care about the community. Those are the only ones that care about the voting portion
I mean,
of
I
what goes.
get it, but I don't get it. I
You look at, like, for example, you take someone who, think about it. You're 25 years old. What was your primary focus
When I was 25 years
when you
old,
was 25 years old? What was your what was your focus point?
kids. I'm sorry, I was already a mom. The
But
kid,
that's what I'm saying. You was focused on taking care of your kids, right?
yeah, family.
Did you even think about local government?
Unfortunately, I'm gonna say this really jacked up, but yeah, I did because of my grandmother and my mother.
Okay,
Not to say it was unfortunate, but fortunately, I had them. Because my grandmother was heavily involved in politics, and my mother was not so much a forefront person, but she was a volunteer for a lot of different things. We listen. I was only 25-year-old that I ever knew at that time that was a lifetime member of the NAACP. Seriously,
right.
so
So
government policies always meant something in my world, but that's because of my family. You know what I'm saying? I had an aunt that was literally back in the day. There was a politician named Jesse Helms. People don't probably don't remember him because he's really, really, really old. But she used to have. I had buttons on that said "Dump Jesse," and we have my fists in the air. I'm serious as a kid. So
right,
I'm like not the prime example of certain things. But I would say this: at 25, I may not be thinking about the next 10 or 15 or 20 years ahead.
right,
But truthfully, we should be teaching our kids to think long term, because today is today, but you want to make it to the next 10, 15 tomorrows. You see what I'm saying?
right. Well,
And
you would
sometimes
think,
there have to be choices you have to make in order to make sure that your tomorrows are secured, but as well as your children's tomorrows are secure.
right? Well, you
And
take for you take let's take this situation. Okay, voting. They had a curfew situation. That's what sparked everything up for me. As far as to come do a little bit more than what I was doing before was
mm-hmm.
okay. They had a curfew situation. Curfew came up. You had the young girls saying a bunch of old people voting for what I'm going to do, blah blah blah, so forth. Okay, got it. But guess what? They still after the curfew situation, you still can't get young people to come out and vote. Most young people of today are dealing with so many different mental crises to where they're not focusing on voting. They're trying to handle all the pressures of the new world they just came into to where they're not thinking about. There's only a few, I would say a very, very few, a small percentage that care about politics because people can't see how politics work. People don't want to take time to see how it all comes together. Um, of course, we all got a class going through high school on government and things of that
Not
nature.
that much of
Yeah.
information.
So if the emphasis in high school was just that little, what makes you think they're going to come out of high school and care about government?
Well, I'm not saying that I think they should come out of high school caring about government based on the partial information they receive.
Yeah, because that's what it is.
I'm
It's
working
partially
on,
up to the
I'm
right.
working on my mouth. I'm really
I
working on
mean,
my
it
mouth.
goes back to where if someone comes out, for example, if high school, if you look back at it, did it really prepare you for the world? It didn't.
No,
It
no,
really didn't.
absolutely freaking not. Like budgeting,
Finance, credit
understanding.
score.
Oh my God,
Um,
none of that was
I
taught.
think home ec was probably the only thing that was helpful because it taught you how to cook.
And I didn't
But
even take that class. Okay. Okay. So I no, it didn't help me at all with that. But
so,
what I'm saying is and I maybe I'm wrong because I have both mainstream and non-mainstream children. Um but my oldest son, being a special needs adult, works on counting money on a regular. We work out like what will his rent look like, what if he's making X amount of dollars per month, how is he gonna pay his bills? Like we go through all that stuff with him and his brother because they're not as prepared as our other sons are, who are all living independently on their own, paying their own bills,
right.
managing their own money. But the thing about it is, I guess, and if you don't know this by now, I guess this will be a shocker to somebody, but being a teen mom, because Jack was born my senior year in high school, being a teen mom and then graduating and then going on to college, that was something that my mom and my grandmother and my dad allowed. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
To make sure I still advance. But truth be told, once I became a parent, I think my mentality or the way I looked at things changed quite a bit because I always had to think about this other little person or little persons that I was now responsible for. So maybe that's what made me more focused on certain things.
Well,
Maybe
I mean, that thing is, if you're not, see, the thing is, there's a difference to where in your household, your family teaches you or they're involved in the community. Growing up in a household like that is different, which is very rare. Where now, like, for example, if I take myself, perfect example is politics didn't exist. Only time I heard about anything was just small parts and pieces about here and there, but nothing. I didn't learn anything about politics until I got older, until after I had a family and was well established. That's when I started to understand politics.
oh
So
yeah.
that's
So
why I
we
said,
all have our own like disadvantages or our own perspectives on stuff. But once you got I guess like that your eyes opened a little bit, or at least darted in different directions. How did you start to learn more? I think that would be my first question to you.
well, see, the one thing is that once, and that's the biggest thing is once something impacts you, that's when you're gonna get more involved. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like for me, I was trying to figure out why in the world am I going to fight two different wars at the same time? And I think that's what opened my eyes up to focus on politics.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's on a that's on a national level.
Mm-hmm.
So local politics never really came into play until after I retired. And then, of course, the importance of that, I started to understand why is it important to vote local. Is if you want, if you're okay with your community, then you can let other people vote for you. But if you're not happy with what's going on in your community, you need to get more involved.
Your community, not your specific community, I'm just saying in general, your
Right,
community.
right.
So your community has for over 15, 20 years had a pretty good low crime rate, under 3%, low jobless rate. I'm saying? um it's been great. For the last 3 to 5 years, you've seen an increase of foot traffic in your area, which has not been something normal other than somebody walking their dog or something like that. You see an increase in um, police presence in your neighborhood because you've now had a couple of murders, you've now had quite a few car break-ins, you've had a few car thefts. So maybe it's not yours, but like maybe it's not my household that's going through all of that. But I would think that at some point I would want to make a difference. Um, because my neighbor 2 doors down, we've been friends for 15, 20 years. Her car got stolen, or her car got broken into, or my neighbor next door, his garage door was vandalized. Like I would think I would want to make a difference, even if it's not just directly for me, but for the people that live around me. And I guess my problem, per se, I guess if it's considered a problem, or my confusion, is in the fact that there's no more neighborly love anymore. There's no more care for community anymore. There's no more concern for, if this doesn't happen to me today, it could happen to me tomorrow. So I better get out here and make some differences today. Like there's none of that anymore. There's no more sentiment like that anymore.
No, and I think that's the problem is that the village, that village way of growing up, it no longer exists like it used to.
That's sad.
Because back in the days, I feel you because that village was like in Georgia, it didn't exist. I would say that right back because in the city, big cities, that doesn't really exist. But like growing up, when my dad would send us up here in North Carolina in the summertime, the village thing was real.
That was real when I was a kid.
So it was a big difference to where now that village method of communities sticking together to look out for each other. In some communities, it still exists. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, some communities, it's a strong village going on, but in some communities, it's not like that. And then you got some communities that are being taken advantage of because of the people that live in that village. So it's like you have to go back, and I think that's the problem that people have to go back and understand is we can't just look out for our area, our village. We have to look out for everybody else. Like for me, for example, I'll say this: if it wasn't for me when we were homeless, and for those individuals, those people didn't take time out. They have to? No. These people that came out and helped us out and they had their own lives to worry about, but they volunteered their time to help people who needed help, who were homeless, that were struggling families. And so it takes those type of individuals as a veteran. And this is the part that's shocking to me is you have a lot of veterans. I'm gonna say a lot. Let me back up. You have some veterans that don't care about their community. As long as it doesn't affect them getting their retirement or their disability
Because
check,
on the federal level, yeah, that's on a
they
whole
don't
lot.
care. The only thing they care about is what happens on the federal level. So then you have those type of veterans. Then you have those veterans like me who, okay, we served our country. Now it's time to serve our community.
That's where my mindset is. It's like, why doesn't that matter anymore? Like,
Because
I
that's
don't
where
know. This
that's
is
what's
this is my moment of being an ignorant person, or wearing those. What does my husband call them? What does your brother call them? Those rose-colored glasses. This is my segment of that. I just don't understand how people don't want to take care of people anymore. I don't understand that. Like, special needs mom and all, I don't know if I would feel the same way if I didn't have special needs kids. I hope the hello I would feel the same way. But I feel like we should be able to take care of each other every time there's something that comes up. Because let me tell you something, being a special needs parent is not a joke. It's not easy. It's not a cakewalk. Whatever you think it is, it ain't a whole bunch of money in it. Ain't none of that. Okay. It's always being ready to be on the offensive or the defensive before representing your children or your
Right.
child.
Right.
So for years I've had to come in like with a sack full of paperwork and whatnot, explaining my children's disability, explaining their abilities, the whole nine. And every time I go into a fight, I call it like my mental fight with
Mm-hmm.
somebody about it, it's always not just for my son or sons or whatever child it is for that day. It's for another 100 parents behind me that may have to come through and fight for the same exact thing. So if I settle the fight now, you won't be giving them this hello later. That's my mentality. And maybe that is a part of that village mentality that I have from being a kid. But I just don't understand why people don't see, if you don't vote the right people in place, programs are affected. Local programs are affected. Local homeless is affected. Local everything is affected. You're tired of seeing homeless on the street. And there's over 30 programs in Fayetteville alone for homeless people, but nobody's talking about them. And nobody's there going, well, I'm not going to say nobody. A lot of people that could support them are not supporting them. You don't want homeless on your street? There's 30 freaking programs in Fayetteville, Cumberland County, Fayetteville,
Well, see
not the
that,
county,
and
just
the
in
thing is,
Fayetteville.
it's kind of and see that situation alone is complex by itself, because there's so many different when when you look at the homeless situation in Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I've learned for the 8 weeks that I've been deep. I'm gonna say deeper, a little bit more involved because I was
Mm-hmm.
involved, but I'm now a lot more involved now. And by getting more involved, you start to see things differently. Just like the homeless situation, some people who want to live that lifestyle. Then you also have some people because of the bad choices that they made in reference to, okay, like for example, they're sex offenders. Um, and because they're sex offenders, there's certain things that can't be done
That's
to
true.
help to support them.
But that's
There's
not every homeless person, though.
That's not right. So every homeless person has their own situation and their own story. So with all, but I do agree with you though. There is a lot of resources out here that
But
under
you're one person and you've actually taken a step or two or five or 10 to at least find out some information. Nobody handed you this information. You actually went out to the community and found out this
yeah.
information,
The
correct?
thing is, you know what they say, closed mouths don't get fed.
There you go.
So it's like you have to get a little bit more involved. And so when I mean, the more research I start looking into this, it's just like the voting for your local government, um, the stuff that goes on in local government, you have to understand the person that you're voting for. You have to really look into why do they want to be your district manager? Why would you want them to represent you? Um, I know I will say this for District 7. I voted for Brendan, and and me personally, I think she's doing a good job. She's doing better than the person before her because at least she's reaching out and giving us information.
Mm-hmm.
So that is communication is a big part of being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you got people out here having their own agendas to use their position to do something to get them ready for their next move, then that again, that's just one of those things to where, like in the military, we call it check the block.
Mm.
Like, and most of the time, and that's one of the things about officers. Like you get, and this is one of the things as NCOs and officers. As an NCO, we are the ones that do all the groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones that do all things. The officer in some cases is the one that takes the credit for it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you get a brand new second lieutenant comes in, which in this case we'll say you get a brand new council member. Council member comes in, you got one that's going to work with the NCO, which is the people in the community, and you got one that's going to do their own thing and make up stuff just because they were trying to make a name for themselves.
Mm.
And so when you hire or when you vote for a council member, you need to understand what is their agenda. What are they about? Are they about taking care of the people? What did they do prior before you hire, or I keep saying hire, but before you
But
vote them in,
basically, that you're right. We're hiring people.
we're hiring
We're
people.
putting people into
So
positions. That's city council. That's the mayor. That's local government. That we're hiring them
right.
for whatever it is period of time.
So like if you're talking about like so like let's back all the way up. Like in your local area, what's the most important thing for your local area for you? For you to live where you're living at now, what's the most important thing that you took into consideration?
Safety.
Public safety.
Hmm.
That is the number one in most cases is the primary thing that people are looking for. Now, if you get a council member that is not thinking about public safety,
I'm ready to fire them immediately.
exactly. But if you have someone who's not seeing things on an eye that you as the if I elected you to represent me, and if everybody else elected you to represent them, and their major concern, one number one thing on the top five list was public safety, and you're ignoring that,
Then you should be fired.
exactly.
Because when you think about like this, we'll use public safety as a blanket for right now. Public safety, in my mind, is not just my neighborhood where we live, but also the schools. Kids,
It's
because
everywhere.
where I live, kids can still walk to school. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you want them to be in place. You want officers to be watching out for these walking routes that are over here, because we do have schools that are near. We have two schools that are near us. One that's literally across the street from our neighborhood. Seriously,
Right.
but it's a main street that you have to cross. When you come out of our gated community, you have to go across the street to this school, but it's right there. And there are some kids' parents who leave out so early in the morning they can't just drop them off at school, and some kids have to walk to school. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I love the fact that they put an actual, like a satellite police station right across from the school.
Right.
So there are always cops right there. And there was a big thing about it with our city council up here before it happened several years ago, but it happened. It was built and it's in place and it's been there for almost a decade, not quite, but almost a decade. But that took parents, and I don't have no toddlers. But you don't think I fuss too?
Right.
I need the safety because my at that time Jackson was walking to up the street to get on the bus, the city bus, to go to classes at Guilford Tech. I needed my child to be safe.
Right. But
You
you
know
know
what
what?
I'm saying?
And that's where
So
you go back and you look at you, and that's what like what you just said is a perfect example of like how military, how we look at things
yeah,
is when we set up a perimeter. Our perimeter is not just one portion; it's the entire camp.
there you go.
So our entire camp, I might be responsible for my 6 o'clock or the 6 o'clock in the perimeter. You might be responsible for the 5 o'clock. You might be responsible for the 9 o'clock. There's different positions in that perimeter that we're responsible for protecting. So
Mhm.
as council members, that's what they're responsible. They have their different areas of that perimeter that they're responsible for. So
That's
they all have to work together to make sure the whole encampment is safe. So if you're looking at a council member and you have one council member that's doing their own thing, just like I heard in a debate, this one council member, I think it was district. I'm still correct. It was at the library talking about something. He was a former police officer, um, but one of the first things he wants to do is get rid of the shots fired or the whatever can't even say it right now. My mind's not thinking right, but
that monitoring system.
the monitoring system.
You
Now,
to get rid of it?
huh?
Why would you
So
want to get rid of that?
so to me, right off the bat, he's not looking at it benefiting public safety. And so for those individuals that are always going against public safety, they will never get my support, nor will they get my vote. But
Because
it's
that
just like
sounds more
things,
personal than it does community. Does that make
that's
sense?
what it sounds like. It sounds more because, like, okay, it's more money that they can save the city. Okay, but how's money going to save the city? How's money going to protect the city?
How about
And I think
protecting the
that's
individuals in the city? Then you'll actually have more money flowing in the city. Just a stupid comment by me, but I'm
right.
just saying.
I mean, but see, that's the problem is if public safety is becomes so bad, it's not going to matter about money, because then the money coming in is not, it's going to be taken away because of crime.
Correct.
So that's why it's like a military stance, a mindset is public safety is always the number one priority. But a lot of people don't look at it that way. Oh well, look, like they're coming up with these worthless programs that
Give me
don't
an
work.
example.
Like one of the programs I believe they're talking about doing is a safety officer or something like that, some type of safety officer thing. Okay, but then this safety officer is supposed to have all the resources to be able to go out and deal with things in the community, which will relieve the police position of doing it. Now, it's not a bad thing, but right now it's not something that we can afford to. I guess when I say afford, we can't waste our time with a guinea pig program.
Yeah, here's my thing about this little guinea pig program because you know
So
I
that's what it is. It's a guinea pig program. It's something that has to be tested. Now,
yeah
don't get me wrong. It's effective in bigger cities. This community safety office it's a very effective thing, but Fayetteville right now that is not should not be a priority.
and even if you did test it, what neighborhoods are you going to test it in?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's the way.
Because I can think of several areas in town where it probably should be tested if they're going to go that route with something. But then, what officer would you place in that community? Because a lot of times they're going to be the black and brown communities.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so you can't put Mr. Sunshine out there um, and
But see,
expect for him to be effective unless he has some type of positive interactions with the people in the community. And they're off gate, they're not going to trust them.
that's the other issue is that the time it takes. Okay, the time it takes the community, or I should say the council board, to do something, it's like it's a
9 months
long.
to 10 months too long. It's a year
It's
too
more,
long.
yeah, that's long range planning. Your short range planning is what's hurting Fayetteville. Is, for example, the curfew thing came up on what, September 5th? Was it September 5th? Or yeah, I think it started in September 5th. It's 8 weeks later, and
Hmm.
nothing has been done about a curfew. Nothing has been established. Now, don't be wrong. Now they're still working it, but something shouldn't take that long. Do we need a curfew at this point? That's why I understand why people don't care about local government, is because local government doesn't. You don't see them in action. You don't see anything.
And
By
they
the time
don't
you
seem to
see
care anything
something,
about us.
right? By the time you see something, five other things don't happen. So it's like it comes to the point now where if
How
you're not
many
a,
murders or assaults or violent crimes or robberies or burglaries have happened in the 8 weeks since we started this whole discussion?
well, they said that, I know the last thing that they said was the murder, the was it the murder rate has already, we already surpassed the murder rate from last year. We already passed that. I think with the last murder that just happened, we already passed that. We have our homicide is up. That portion of the crime is, I think that's the only major portion of the crime is up. Everything else has kind of gone down, but the numbers for someone violence in Fayetteville has gone up drastically.
I believe it.
So here it is, and we still got 2 months left in this year. We got November, which we just started as today, and then December.
Hmm.
So
But
that's why I
yet
say
no
it's,
moves have been made.
so when people, so like most time when someone wants to be involved in something, they want to see immediate response. They want to see something on the time that they spent on something. So like if I vote, let's say for example, if we go out and we vote,
Hmm.
I vote for somebody, they've been in office for 2 years, and I haven't seen nothing, no fruit from that tree, then did they do their job?
No, they didn't. Here's the thing. I get that government is like hurry up and wait, blah 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 blah.
Right.
But in order to actually have change happen, Someone has got to be the one to step out in front and say, look, this is what we need to get done. We need to have a set time frame. Let's get it accomplished. Let's move on. We've got other stuff on the list. Like with what we do, we're under time restraints all the time, professionally, right?
Yeah, right.
So in I guess for you and I, it's a matter of create the plan, execute the plan. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the holdup? Like, what stops it from us making the plan and executing the plan? Cause we ain't got time to waste like that.
Well, see, that's where, and I think that's where it comes to where again we go back with that 1% of training we got in high school about our political government.
I guess so.
That
Yeah.
like all we did was we were taught how the government is structured, how many branches of government we have,
Mm-hmm.
and how it works. We never got the details on how it impacts our community. We never got the
True.
details on how certain things fall into place. It's just like a lot of people right now. It's like big thing in the news on how all these different district lines are being drawn to where it's going to benefit Republicans. Okay, we're already in a Republican state,
Yeah, we're in the South. Sorry, y'all, but it's gonna be that way.
and the reason why North Carolina will continue to be behind the times
Mm-hmm.
is they don't want to see any changes. You have all these individuals when you vote for a
The
council,
ones in power absolutely
right?
do not want to see any
They
change.
don't
The
want
ones who
changes
have the
because,
power to make change won't step out.
well, you think about it. If they change something, they lose power.
But the ones who do actually, like the ones like me and you, the little people, we have the power to change a lot of stuff. But we can't do it singly. We have to do it unified. We have to do it as a group. Did I just say unified?
You say unified. I'm about to say
Hurt
you
me
use the
right
U word.
now.
Use
I
the
should
U
know
word
better.
because that's the biggest thing is how you gonna get people to unify. You can't get people unified to do a small community event. Better yet,
Okay.
try to make
To
make
agree on
change.
the food for the daggone community event. That's why I'm gonna stop right
Right.
there. I ain't gonna say nothing else. I'm just gonna say that part.
I mean, so it's kind of like one of those things to where it is like when you're in a position where people don't care. Let's say it like this: when people don't care, you have a lot more power than what people think, and that's what people want. Just like right now, what's our
Negative
numbers?
power.
Here it is. We're at like 1%. Here it is. We're like, was it day? I think I had it up a few minutes ago. We're at day 9 since
Yeah.
the polls have opened, and because of we're like right now we're at day 9. The polls have been open. We've only had 207. I think it was 2,749 people vote, and
This is just over what 11%.
huh?
No, which is just right at 1%
Yeah,
of
just
the
barely
total.
1% have people
Yeah.
who are eligible to vote have voted.
Because
Two
the
thousand.
eligibility is at 200 and what
Well, the
205 or
population it
something.
was like 200 something people, but out
Okay,
of
so
200 something people, how many are eligible to vote? And I know that, like, say, I can go and get those numbers, but
yeah,
I mean,
but it's just
you're talking about barely 1% of the people have
came out
voted.
to vote in the primaries. I'm in the early voting part, and that's really scary. But how do you convince veterans who say it local government don't affect me, um, single moms and single dads who are saying, "What has the government ever done for me, locally or otherwise?" Youth who are like, "I got other stuff to think about." How do you convince so many different groups of people that this is important?
Well, see, I think that's the biggest part. Is just like okay, with Brenda McNair, what she does is she sends us out information on what's going on, what's taking place. A lot of things, if it wasn't for her communicating with us, we would not know. If you're not gun ho and if you're not going on social media, the website for City of Fayetteville, you're not good. If your council member is not setting up something like when we had a safety meeting, okay, I don't ever remember the person before her ever having a meeting where we can come and be a part of it. See, and that's what's going to happen is that we have to get council members that are involved. They're not just in there making decisions based off of their own personal preference or because their own agenda.
But how do you get around their own? I, okay, Mario, you're gonna yell at me later. So, city council person,
Mhm.
not naming any names, but whomever he or she may be, um, you weren't voted based on your own agenda. You were voted based on the promises that you made to your community. How about you do what you're supposed to do? That's
Well,
that's what I got.
well, and see, that's what happens is when a person goes in, they get their 2 years. And I agree. Somebody else said this too: is that there should be a rating system to let you know where they how well did they do within their first 2 years. Did they accomplish what they said they were going to do? Did they do this? Did they do that? Okay, it's good to throw ideas out there all day long, but if none of those ideas have any action behind it, they don't mean anything. And I think that's where the politics come into place. Is you got people that throw out ideas and know that for a fact that once it gets into the community's hands, it's going to get shot down, but you can't control it. So they try to get credit just because you brought it up. If
Isn't there a civilian committee that gives feedback to the city council? I could have sworn there was one in Fayetteville too.
Well, there are different people that kind of watch what goes on. But like for example, I'll say this: if you have a council member that is constantly fighting against the police chief on everything that he is doing, how's that going to impact public safety? Those are things that you have to be like. If I see you, let's say for example, in a leadership position, if you're a council member and you're disrespecting another council member, what does that say about your leadership?
Combative. Sorry.
No, but keep in mind, this is the individual that's supposed to be leading your area, your community, for us to have a better overall community. So, do you want someone disrespectful in a position that has a direct connection to how your community is going to be?
You don't, but here's the problem. Um, there's a phrase out there, it's been going around for a couple years now because of social media stuff, but everybody isn't who they post to be. So you get somebody in office, and I really want to throw a name out there so bad, but I'm gonna be very polite and professional, and not do that. Who comes in one way, but then starts to appear differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, how do you get rid of that? Ugh, you know what I'm saying? Like you can't really call. Like I've heard people call. My husband, I just talked about this yesterday about people being called a cancer to certain things, certain,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to do that. You don't want to label somebody that way. You don't want to call somebody that. But there are people that are literally cancers who don't want to see progression, who don't want to see anything past their limited crap that they want to do. That's it.
Right.
And that's sad because you, don't get me wrong, I know we're in our 50s now, but we ain't living forever, dog. You got to set up things for our children, our grandchildren, things that will benefit our community
Right.
on the long term, long range, long, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not just for this week and next month. When did that become the main source of everything that they do? That's what I don't get. Okay, I'm being that girl again. Sorry.
No, but see that's the problem across the board is if you don't have the right people voting, and when I say this, if you just got people voting on popularity and not results, then again, is voting effective? And so that's what with local government, even with the federal, when you go to your national government, your state government, is you gonna run into the same problem. Okay, for example, if I look at state and like state like North Carolina, okay, we're about to be outnumbered in the state of North Carolina. What can be done about voting? If nobody else is going to vote, then how's that going to help me, or how's it going to hurt me?
I don't know.
Everyone knows North Carolina is a Republican state. They just changed the district lines to where now it gives more
Redistricting is
Republicans more power.
always meant that's redlining all day long. Sorry.
So let's be realistic. Like me personally, I sit back and I listen. You gotta pay close attention to what people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's take gun violence. Will we see a change in gun violence in our life
No,
expectation? We will never see it.
no,
So
because
why would someone campaign and waste time talking about gun violence knowing it's not going nowhere?
I guess they wouldn't. But the
No,
reason.
but what I'm saying is it sounds good, right?
Oh, okay.
It sounds good. So if I'm going to campaign, now keep in mind, I am a local city council member and I'm campaigning on gun violence.
Yeah, you suspect. Because I'm pretty sure that some part of the NRA or some other gun group is probably ready to cut you a check masked as a campaign support
No,
thing.
but you look at the level of government though. If we can't do it at a national level,
We ain't gonna never do it at a local level.
so how in the world do you think you're going to do it at a local level?
Never.
So
Because them same check cutters are cutting them down here too. Excuse me, Lord. Sorry. Sorry.
no, but I'm just saying though, what how much power does a council member have to state law? How much power does a council member have on federal law?
On federal law, state law, they don't have a lot of things. But here's the thing: you could, if the local community leaders got together and literally came up with something, we could spread it like a cancer. You know what I'm saying? Or a positive treatment for the cancer, really. Because if they start thinking about the safety of children, um, our schools aren't safe. You can't even go to the movies or bowling alley anymore. All the places that you would do activities with your family and your kids, you can't even do that anymore because you're afraid of what could happen while you're there. But if they cared anything about their community, they would do something to start at least formulating some type of resolution to it. But the problem is going to be getting it to take hold throughout the state because you've got so many people saying they'll take away our guns. I don't want your gun. I want the gun of that fool that has mental health issues and that want to kill all the whoever's.
No,
They
but
got a
then go
hate
back.
thing going on.
Let's go back and look at the local level, right? If every time something comes up to prevent crime or to get a control over crime, and they're voting against it, then
That means they don't care about their dang community.
but how can you say one moment you're talking gun control, and then the next minute you're going against everything that's going to give the police a better benefit of fighting crime?
Because somewhere in there, your um your desired your set agenda, your personal agenda, and the community's agenda are not aligning. So you're going to fuss about mass shooting incidents, but yet when you have the opportunity to fix something or make a small change in your community that could literally ripple into a bigger change, you're going to not do it because at the end of the day, the people that signing them checks to you, that they out signing for you, ain't gonna support you if you speak against it.
Right, but you got to keep
That
in
that
mind.
that becomes that should let every person know that those people in our local government are not for us. They're for
Right,
self.
and I think that's the problem we have at the local level, is that we just don't have, like, when you're lobbying, like I said, when you're saying one thing and you have no control over that thing, you have no state register, you have no power within the state, you have no power within the federal. So how are you talking about something that is not even happening within those two levels, and you're at the very bottom?
But if you get a, let me say something. there have been tons of, like, I don't know what it's called, um groups of people. Like before, when I spoke before about my aunt and the dump Jesse thing, like literally as a kid, I'm going to these grassroots organization protests and marches on the state capitol, on the city, whatever, and we were making a difference. But they didn't just say it for that day; they said it every day. They fought for the changes they need in their community every day. The problem nowadays is that if it's something that gets you a front page spread today, but you don't see no more opportunities down the road, you probably won't do it
Right.
because
Well, see,
it really is for
but
the
that's
youth.
just it, though. Here it is, and I'm gonna stress this. This is the part that it's kind of like when you see stupid stuff happening in the news.
Mm-hmm.
You have a group of people protesting a procedure about making decisions on a curfew. Okay, that lets you know we're and to a certain degree we got way too many conflicts and issues um to where we can't even let a procedure go through city council.
And sadly, that's the way this world works. It's
Well,
going to
but
be
that
like
but I go back to what we have. Why did that happen? Because we have the wrong council member
in
that was
place.
put in place.
Hmm.
So that says a lot,
Which
right? By
cannot be
itself.
resolved unless we have local people come out and vote
Right.
next
So,
week.
and that's what I said right now. So that's what I said. Trying to do anything organized or try to do anything is like it was never happen because no one wants to work together. Nobody wants to vote. And then when they want something, they go about doing it the wrong way. So that's why it's like that's why you can sit back and you can see why people are so disgusted.
Hmm.
That's why you can see why there's so many. That's why we barely have 1% of people coming out voting. Like, show us what you're doing. Like transparency. Okay, I've heard that word at least for the last 8 weeks. I think I've heard it at least about 1,000 times.
Okay, I was gonna say at least.
At least 1,000 times. But what are we doing to show people that your local government is doing something?
Or that even matter to your local government. Sorry, just had to put
Well,
that
I
in.
mean, it's like if I saw like if people would take time out to see what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. You don't see besides what they post on the City of Fayetteville's website.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you read through all that, you don't probably like I said you're not tuned in or tuned up or tuned prepared or whatever you want to call it. You won't understand half the stuff they're saying in the minutes. You won't understand half the
Mm-hmm.
stuff they're talking about. You have to understand their structure. You have to understand what they're doing. And I think that's the problem across the board is it is like communication. There's too many barriers. When you go politics to a regular person, if you don't speak the lingo, you're not going to understand what's going on.
True.
And I think that's what it is that they make stuff that's easy and simple and then make it complex because then guess what? Nobody wants to be involved.
Too
Then they have more.
complicated. Too much energy got to put into it. Because we've all, for some reason, I don't think that our age group exactly has completely rolled over to this, but most of the ones after us, like the generation after us, are like 10-second intervals.
Right.
10 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds, and that it has to be fulfilled in 8 to 10 seconds. It takes you 8 to 10 seconds to read a whole book. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand the mentality of it. They can't get it in 8 to 10 seconds. They don't want to fool with it. But that's the society we're dealing with now.
Right. If it's something they can't quickly comprehend and keep
Digest. That's
moving,
right.
then
Hmm.
it's like the attention to detail is gone. It's like the attention span is like it's not there. It's not there for, and that's what how it goes on. I sit back and I listen to a certain person. If you're talking language that I gotta go get a dictionary to understand every word you're saying,
Hmm.
then guess what? Yeah, you just completely lost me because now I gotta take time out to understand what you're saying. So when you're talking like using words that people don't use on a normal basis to explain what's going on, people are not gonna take time out to understand what you're saying. They're gonna say, okay, you know what, never mind, I'm good, and they're gonna keep on moving.
But that's okay.
But that's what. But see, that's the thing is that if they're not taking time to communicate, and what's one of the first things that they talk about public speaking? What's one of the first things that you say? What's the first thing? Is always speak at an eighth grade reading. What was it at an eighth grade level?
Hmm.
Always speak on an eighth grade level. They don't want you speaking on a college level. They want you speaking on an eighth grade level.
And
But
the
you got
problem
some
with
people
that,
that gone to college, they graduated from college, they got their doctorate, they got their master, they got their bachelor, they got their associates, and they feel that in order for them to feel important, they got to use big words from the dictionary just to make it sound like they got an education. But in reality, the breakdown is okay. Look, you got to talk at an eighth grade level, so that everybody understands what you're saying.
hmm,
Everyone understands your point. But if you want to go in and use big words, to where you saying stuff and you didn't give me a whole sentence and I don't understand half the stuff you just said in that one sentence, then you're not properly communicating with your people.
true, very true. Well, I guess we're not going to resolve the voting problem in Fayetteville or Cumberland County or anywhere else right now, but um I do think that maybe just speaking out, letting people know you're not the only ones that are frustrated. You're not the only ones that are underfulfilled, underwhelmed, or underfulfilled by the local government. Um,
But before you say that, I was gonna say one more thing. You
go ahead.
take Trump for example. He got voted in. Why did he get voted in? Because people didn't
Because
take him seriously.
he fed on fear. He fed on fear.
He fed on fear, but people didn't take him seriously, and people didn't take voting seriously until someone like Trump got into office. What happened the very next time when it came time to vote? You had record-breaking voters come out. More people who voted for Obama came out to vote to make sure Trump didn't get put back in office.
True.
So it takes some idiot to get in office and do crazy and stupid things to get people's attention. Now, again, it goes back to that same principle. Until someone does something that affects you, that people are not going to get involved. But
Absolutely.
the moment you find out that you're losing this, you're losing that, you're losing these benefits, you're losing that because the person's in office. Now all of a sudden, now you want to get involved because it now has a direct effect on you.
That's right.
But
And that's when it's probably a little bit too late.
yeah,
Just saying. But anyway, thanks Mario for today. I know we kind of got started a little bit late today, but hopefully you guys that have tuned in or have come back and look at it later will see some of the things that we're talking about. Oh my gosh, that phone had to start just now.
right.
And we'll see some of the things we're talking about and see some ways that maybe you can help um maybe talk to your significant other or your kids or your parents and talk to them about their voting. Not necessarily which way they're going to vote, but hey, can we all go vote together? You know, so that maybe there will be a decent turnout. I'm not looking to have 100% or anything like that because that's almost an impossibility. But it would be nice to see more than 1% of our citizens in Fayetteville, North Carolina, actually come out and vote, and also more than 1% in Greensboro or Jamestown or High Point or
And
Charlotte
North
or
Carolina as a whole, yeah,
just show up.
right.
And even if it doesn't swing your way, don't be discouraged by that because honestly, let's think about it. Either way we vote, we got to vote for somebody. And sometimes I say, and I'll be the first one to admit this, I do say it's a lesser of two evils on a regular basis. That is my quote. That is my thing that I say. But realistically, I'd rather have someone that has somewhat of a mindset that's going to at least attempt to improve the community that my mother lives in, my brother lives in, my god brother lives in, my kids come to, my clients live in. I would like to see somebody come in and do something positive for those in the area because that is still my hometown. But I would like to see those positive influences come into Durham, Raleigh, Charlotte, Wilmington, wherever in North Carolina because I love to see North Carolina be that state that is pivotal in a positive manner to improving government, both locally and nationally. Just my little 2 cents.
Yeah, and like I said, I agree 100% everything you just said, and I
Thank you.
just want to say that you got to
'Cause
start somewhere.
I got nephews in Fayetteville, y'all. Now I ain't really playing with y'all. I got nephews in Fayetteville, and I need them to be able to grow up and be safe. And my nephews believe in a lot of things that adults probably don't even haven't even given 2 cents of thought to. But I have nephews, several of them, not just Mario's kids, but my god brother's kids too, that do care about their long term, existence in the area. So I just want you guys to just be more aware of things, like understanding that we didn't just when voting started, we didn't have the right to vote. Black and brown people, we didn't have the right to vote. And they've done so much to whitewash our history out of schools. And sometimes you have to kind of just go on a tangent, like I'm doing right now, to say, listen, we didn't get our voting rights until, you know what I'm saying, because it was women that couldn't vote and blacks that couldn't vote, or African Americans or Negroes or whatever they called us at the time. We couldn't vote. Women couldn't vote either. So we have these rights to vote now. Um, there is a wall. I'm gonna tell y'all again. There is a wall in Fayetteville where my grandmother's face is on that wall. I take a lot of pride in that because she was a fighter for voting rights, for equal treatment. Okay, and when you guys don't vote, you're just trampling on all of those people that gave up their freedom, their lives, and some of them, well, some livelihoods, but mostly lives or freedom, to
Mhm.
enable us to be able to vote. So if you're not going to use you have a freedom that you didn't even earn. It was earned for you. So step your butts up and do what's right. That's it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mario.
Yep, but that's all. Like I said, I think today's show was, like I said again, this was not really one of the hottest shows or hottest subjects we wanted to really talk about, but we did want to talk about it, and we did
Mm-hmm.
want it to highlight exactly. It's sad to me. It is extremely sad, where people that don't vote. Now, my personal view is, I think that people who protest and don't vote, you're wasting your time. You're wasting
That's
people's time because
who does
you're
that?
not. If you're trying to make a change, you should make a change both ways. You should be out there on both sides of it. You should be trying
Mm-hmm.
to vote and do your thing. But when you're just protesting, you're just making noise. I mean, that's all
Agreed.
you're doing. You're just making noise. You're not doing anything else but making noise. You're
Agreed.
not. You're not really serious about making changes. You're just making noise. Probably try to get your picture in the newspaper, 6 o'clock news.
I mean, if I do it, I want to wear my Spider-Man shirt. See my Spider-Man shirt?
Huh?
If I get on the news, I want to wear my Spider-Man shirt. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
I know that's real. But I was like, me, I'm just, yeah. But that's what I say. It's like and it's sad to me. The more you get involved, the more disappointed you get. You see,
I know. I know. And
but
I
it
hear
will
your
get
phone
better.
going crazy. So we're gonna go, you guys, for today, but we'll be back next week with our regular scheduled um show. We
Topics.
might hit
So,
on politics for just like 5 or 10 minutes because I'll be right after the voting for next week. We come back. But we hope that you guys have a wonderful day, um, an enjoyable day, a thought provoking day, hopefully. And let's make good choices for ourselves
definitely
and for our neighbors and our
get out
families.
there and vote.
Go vote, baby. Go vote.
Vote, vote, vote. All right. Well, we'll talk. We'll talk to y'all later.
All right, good guys. Bye.
Bye.